Inside an abandoned factory, a woman suddenly wakes up on an operating table. Since none of the players in this film have names, let me, Arthur, the master of naming, give them some names. This hesitant-looking woman is very beautiful, so let's call her Xiao Lei. After searching around, she only finds a strange carved totem on the wall, which even has bloodstains on it. Frightened, she turns and runs, only to bump into a panicked blonde man at the corner. In the corridor, a figure in white flashes by. After confirming that the other party means no harm, the two of them start sneaking around together and soon meet the long-haired woman and the man with glasses upstairs. Xiao Lei asks if they have seen the woman in white downstairs, which frightens the two into silence. The long-haired woman decides to go down and check by herself, but finds nothing. Little do they know, that figure in white slips by like a ghost right in her blind spot. Meanwhile, on the other side of the factory, the bearded man, the buzzcut guy, and Xiao Ba are also exploring together. This abandoned factory looks as if it's completely empty, but only the long-haired woman knows that it can move on its own. However, the blonde guy who stayed behind doesn't trust the man with glasses in front of him. He has completely forgotten everything that happened before he woke up. And it's not just how everyone alive in this factory is the same, they've even forgotten their own names. The man with glasses takes out what he found, several totems of different shapes, but no one knows what they mean. As the long-haired woman's team continued to explore, they discovered a confinement room. Inside, besides a girl who was still unconscious, there was also a muscular man who had just woken up. He couldn't see anything outside through the one-way glass. He could only rely on the beastly instincts within his body, staying in a safe corner to conserve his strength. Let's call this man Xiao Chang, but the people outside were unwilling to give up on the girl lying on the ground. Because his skin was dark and he had no hair, let's call him Xiao Fen. They sneaked into the room, and as soon as they tried to move the girl, she let out a groan. Xiao Chang saw the whole scene unfold. He immediately rolled over, jumped down, and landed a punch, knocking off someone's glasses, then grabbed the long-haired woman and started smashing her fiercely. Seeing that he was about to strangle the one with glasses, the long-haired woman hurried to intervene, but still couldn't match his strength. Fortunately, Blondie arrived just in time and knocked Xiao Chang out with a heavy swing of a stick, rescuing the other two from danger. Things weren't peaceful on Big Beard's side either. Deep inside the factory, the three of them ran into a figure dressed in black, who was fiercely smashing something with a steel pipe. Blood splattered across the bridge in an instant. The three were so terrified by the scene that they turned and ran downstairs. Their panic and chaos, all observed by the person behind the scene sheet, was the mastermind orchestrating this entire game. Meanwhile, on Glass's side, Xiao Chang had already been tied up, and Xiao Fen had woken up as well. He too couldn't remember anything that had happened. He had even less idea what was going on with Xiao Chang, but he did know that this condition was clinically called selective amnesia. Patients would only remember how to speak, walk, and perform daily necessities, but wouldn't recall any details from their lives. Rather than worrying about this, it was better to focus on their empty stomachs. When it was time to serve the meal, they unexpectedly found some food in the storage cabinet. What a pleasant surprise. After eating and drinking their fill, the long-haired one led the team to continue investigating, while Glasses and Xiao Lazy stayed behind to keep watch. Xiao Chang wanted to ask if he knew what was going on, but with blood trickling from the corner of his mouth, he could only keep repeating that they were in hell. The long-haired trio encountered another totem. Just as the blonde was saying he had seen this, a rolling shutter door suddenly dropped, separating the two of them from Xiao Fen. In the darkness, the ghost in white appeared once again. Terrified, Xiao Fen screamed and ran blindly. The two with long hair followed her all the way, but Xiao Fen vanished into thin air inside a room. Meanwhile, things were just as tense for Big Beard's group. The three of them split up to evade the man in black who was chasing them. Crewcut and Xiao Ba had just breathed a sigh of relief. But then, the sudden return of the man in black startled them into a panic. To keep the agitated Xiao Ba from drawing attention, Crewcut actually pulled him into his arms, holding him tightly, as if their lives depended on it. The first player has logged out, and the planner's eyes are filled with satisfaction. Endless torment still awaits the remaining 9. Xiao Fan and Blondie hurried back to explain the situation to Xiao Lei and the others. Xiao Fan had vanished right under their noses, as if into thin air. Bearded Guy and Crewcut had also managed to evade pursuit all the way to the confinement room. Accompanying them was the man in black dressed in black clothes, with a black face and wielding a black steel pipe. Not calling him Little Black would be simply unreasonable. Seeing that the person was a woman, Crewcut immediately tried to make a move, but was stopped by Long Hair. With his reassurance, Little Black finally put down the steel pipe. It turned out that the bloodstains Bearded Guy and the others had seen were just from him hunting. Little Black had woken up at random after a month, and this was actually the first time she had seen a living person. Suddenly, Xiao Chang remembered that he knew Little Black, which truly surprised the planner. He immediately took action, and the walls of the confinement room actually began to move. The moving walls separated everyone. Xiao Lei hurried to untie Xiao Chang, saving him just in time from being crushed into a pulp. On the long-haired side, they finally got a clear look at the ghost outside the window, but they didn't waste any time. Someone smashed the glass with a bench, allowing everyone to escape the room. However, eyes that had grown used to the darkness were suddenly pressed hard by the moving wall, turning into a mess of long hair. Jinmao got separated from the group, and the two of them could only stay where they were, huddling together. Meanwhile, Xiaoping, who had vanished into thin air, was tightly bound, and a group of masked people swarmed to attack him. Xiao Lei and the other two searched the factory for traces of the others, but the bearded man, who lagged behind, was drawn to a totem on the wall. He couldn't help but reach out to it, and his hand was instantly enveloped by a strange substance. In a flash, a laser etched an electric arm guard totem onto his arm, and the wall suddenly burst open with a thunderous sound, leading to an unknown place. Meanwhile, Xiao Lian and Xiao Chang, unaware of what was happening behind them, were suddenly surrounded by a group of masked people. Shang Chan immediately engaged them in a fight. Although he was strong and powerful, he was still no match for dozens of opponents and was quickly surrounded and beaten by the crowd. Fortunately, the bearded man arrived just in time to save the day, blasting everyone away with a single electric punch. The two of them quickly followed him into the passage behind the totem, but he was still as clueless as before, having no idea what had just happened. The gunmen and others came to target Xiao He, and they suddenly noticed that each of them had a different tattoo on their necks. Seeing this, the mastermind decided to give them a bit more fun. After some manipulation, fragments of their memories slowly began to resurface. Xiao Chang remembered that he was a soldier from the year 1565, while Xiao Lei recalled that he came from the future, the year 2154. The bearded man bluntly said that the two of them were crazy because he remembered as well. It should be 2016 now. Not only did they recover their memories, but Xiao Fen, who had also endured torture, regained all of his memories as well. The mastermind immediately switched back to the game, questioning him about what tricks he had played with the game system. It was obvious that Xiao Fen had originally been a member of this gaming organization too, but when faced with interrogation, he only responded with constant curses, which in turn brought him yet another round of brutal torture. Chao Fa and the others took out pictures of totems, and they speculated that each person corresponded to one of these totems. At this moment, the game officially reached its climax. Meanwhile, in the outside world, all of humanity was watching this live broadcast in front of their screens, but their situation didn't seem too good. Chao Fa led the team to find the clothes from the totem, and Xiao He felt a strange connection, remembered that he was actually a cyber police officer from the year 2154. 25 years ago, a global catastrophe struck Earth, and 9 billion people perished in the disaster. After that, 9 major corporations took control of all the Earth's resources, and the remaining survivors became slaves to these companies. At least 2 billion people struggled to survive under the oppression and exploitation of the corporations. As for anything else, he didn't know, but at the very least, he was certain that the totem on the wall was connected to him. As Xiao He reached his arm into the center of the circle, the system immediately recognized him. After a DNA scan, the totem began to rotate, and with a thunderous sound, the wall opened up. He was inside. Having recovered his personal weapon, on the other side, the bearded man and his 2 companions were still searching around, while Xiao Lei encountered the ghostly figure alone. The apparition muttered something, urging him to remember everything. Eventually, both groups reunited, but the persistent masked man once again came after them. Xiao Lei immediately raised his gun and fired at the crew-cut man, but was ambushed by the ghost. Xiao Fei threw a grenade, but missed. The 3, lacking combat ability, could only run away. At this moment, the livestream was temporarily halted due to a malfunction. The director flew into a rage and hurriedly sent his assistant to find out the cause. However, the danger faced by everyone in the game remained unchanged. The bearded man and his companion retreated while firing, regrouping with Xiao Lei once again, but Xiao He was entangled by the ghost and the masked man. In a moment of desperation, he could only shoot the gas tank behind him as a violent explosion erupted. A glitch appeared in the game system as well. The company executives immediately showed up, demanding an explanation from the director. Before the situation could get any worse, the consequences of the failure had to be remedied. You know that yourself. Under immense pressure, the director could only call for his assistant. After the livestream resumed, he had a hidden plan in mind. While the network was down, Little Pink tried to awaken the consciousness of the masked people. Just then, Longhair and the others arrived in time. After a fierce life-or-death struggle, they finally managed to defeat everyone. It turned out that while they were evacuating, they heard Little Pink's cries coming from the ventilation duct. Little Pink then explained the truth. It was because he had tampered with the system that everyone was able to break free from the network's tracking. Now, with time running out, he hurried over to the control panel to set the parameters. The tunnel dug by Blondie was now open, and Little Pink gave an explanation. The world they were in was actually a game called Andrew. Everyone who passed through the tunnel had their memories erased. Their previous memories were replaced with new ones, but it didn't matter, he had already finished the setup. As long as they went through the tunnel, everyone would remember everything. After that, they would have to hide. Otherwise, there would be no way out but death. When he learned of Little Black's death, there was only sadness in Longhair 3's eyes. Only then did the others believe that everything Little Black had said was true. Their real identities were actually slaves controlled by the company. Little Pink continued to explain. Everyone had voluntarily participated in this game, all for the sake of winning their freedom. The ultimate winner could choose any 3 people to gain freedom together. Each season, the organizers would change the time and environment settings. That's why everyone came from different years, because it had implanted a virus into the system, which ended up corrupting the database. Village Head originally wanted to just leave, but everyone's eyes had been implanted with nano cameras, allowing a global audience to watch the competition directly through the participants' eyes. Next, what Xiaofen needed to do was to short-circuit part of the system's pathways. A surge of intense electric current immediately erupted, and Xiao Lei and Xiao Chang were instantly affected. It turned out that Xiao Chang was the champion of the previous season's game, which explained why he was so strong. After winning, he even openly requested to participate in the next season's game, simply because he wanted to save more people. Shang Fen continued to reveal more truths. In fact, each player's nanocamera is connected to the nervous systems of all the slaves who support them. If the player wins, all their supporters will gain freedom together, but if they lose, the supporters will die along with them. The case that Xiao He had been investigating earlier was precisely about the game's planner, as he was suspected of directly manipulating the outcome of the game. However, when the 3 of them were carrying out their plan, they were caught on the spot by the planner. In the end, they were also written into the new episode of the game after Xiaofan exposed Bogu, and there were still important files stored there. The disaster that caused the deaths of 9 billion people actually had a hidden conspiracy behind IVE, had to let the world know the truth. Chang Mao immediately decided to escort Xiaofan out, and the only way out was in the basement. From this point on, everything was no longer about the game. Instead, it was a revolution. Both sides finally met again, and Xiao Chang and Xiaofan were able to reunite, but the persistent masked man appeared once more. This time, no one planned to run away. When a group of warriors put their lives on the line, the battle could only end in victory, especially since they had hundreds of millions of supporters behind them. However, the mastermind had no intention of letting them leave the basement, which was supposed to be the exit, so easily. Only a single supermasked man was waiting there, and even someone as strong as Xiao Chang was no match for him. Even when everyone charged at him together, it was still hard to gain the upper hand. But the difference between humans and machines lies in their indomitable will. In the end, the masked man was brought down by the combined assault of the two. However, at that moment, the mastermind took control of the crew cut man's body. Catching Xiao Chang off guard, he brutally snapped his neck. Countless supporters behind him also collapsed as he went offline. When the bearded man woke up from his faint, he finally saw Xiaoba's corpse again and instantly understood everything. He immediately rushed at the crew cut man, fighting desperately. At this moment, Xiaofan and the others also discovered that the basement hidden behind the totem perfectly matched the pattern of Blondie's tattoo. Just as the crew cut man was about to finish off the bearded man, Blondie fired a grenade launcher shot straight through his chest, completely taking care of this traitor. Outside the basement entrance, Xiaolei found another pair of gloves. As Xiaofan cracked the code, everyone passed through the tunnel together, while the company executives loudly berated the planners. They never had the resources to help 2 billion people survive, and the truth about manipulating the number of players in the game absolutely could not be revealed to the public, or it would only spark a global rebellion. However, the planner remained completely unfazed, still had a backup plan. As the group first emerged from the tunnel, they were scorched under the blazing sun. Xiaofan still didn't understand why the game hadn't ended yet, but before he could figure out the reason, he was ambushed and forced offline. The attacker was none other than Xiaolei, wearing electric gloves. It turned out that just like Ghost, he was also the adopted child of the planner, Phantom, and was willing to do anything for him. This was also how Phantom controlled the final outcome of the game. Faced with Xiaolei's betrayal, the bearded man could only tell the two with long hair to run quickly. He himself was blasted straight down the hillside by Xiaolei. The blonde and the long-haired one split up and ran, passing through the air wall and returning once again to the factory building. The bearded man hurried to pick up the fallen Bikai, but was knocked to the ground by Xiaolei's electric attack. All the supporters behind him also lost consciousness, including the granddaughter of the company president, and that wasn't all. The planner even turned around and bit back. He took the initiative to have his assistant report that the president was manipulating the game for personal gain. With this, the president's position was bound to change hands. After Xiaolei attacked Dahu, he disappeared for a short while. Changfa couldn't make sense of everything happening before his eyes. The only explanation was that their neural chips had been taken over. Everything they were seeing was just an illusion. They were still inside the game. Under his guidance, Jin Mao managed to calm down. The two of them finally recalled everything, and after breaking free from the illusion, they discovered an underground exit. Unexpectedly, Xiaolei appeared once again. Bikai, who had used electricity to knock down Changfa and Dahuzi, was also thrown out. Jin Mao picked up a gun and told him to leave quickly, but how could he bear to abandon Changfa? Staring at Xiaolei in front of him, he resolutely controlled Bikai to attack from behind. Jin Mao was no pushover, in fact, he was a top player in the game. The two supported each other as they made their way through the exit, only to find themselves surrounded by towering skyscrapers outside the gunfight. This virtual future world began to collapse and be destroyed as the game ended. In front of them stood only a massive spaceship, signaling that the second level awaited. Suddenly, Dahuzi, who had been in shock, woke up instantly, and his supporters behind him also regained consciousness. The game was far from over. On the outskirts,